LinkedIn is great at connecting you with the world's largest professional network. But it can't connect you with motivation on a Monday morning. LinkedIn can help you get insights from your professional community. But it can't give you any insight into why Dave's still talking on mute. And while it can't stop your boss from bringing tuna for lunch, LinkedIn can help bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit LinkedIn.com to learn more.
The road to the NBA Finals ends here, with star guards setting the tone. The Cavs eye another upset, while the Knicks carry the dreams of all of New York. The Eastern Conference Finals continue on ESPN and ABC.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you are back with us for a news pod. We are breaking up this week's Q&A. There's another part out tomorrow with a news pod, and I am joined by Andrew Smithson. Hello mate.
Hello mate, Gav, nice to see you. Are you well?
I am mate. I'm very good. The sun's starting to crack through them clouds, isn't it? We're going to have a nice warm weekend and we're building up nicely to that Chelsea game, and it feels like it's there's a sense of occasion about it, and we will get onto that in a bit, but it's a nice feeling in the air, mate, isn't there?
There is, yeah. People seem to be looking forward to it. The mood's good, and if there's a bit of warm weather to go with it, even better.
I know. Well, we'll see what happens when we get closer to that date. I am obviously very, very excited. But yeah, today we're going to chat a little bit about what's going on in the world of Sunderland. Unfortunately, Andrew, as we record this right now, the club's end of season awards due is ongoing, so we don't know who's won what yet, but I'm sure we'll react to that maybe on one of the pods closer to the weekend. But I want to start off with a bit of transfer stuff, and this has got to be one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard. Never mind this. I mean, I say this earlier at the transfer window. We aren't even in the transfer window, but the silly summer stories have already started, and Trai Hume has been linked by Spanish news outlet Defensa Central with a move to Real Madrid. What was your immediate thoughts and feelings when you heard that and you saw that? Because I've got to be honest, I'm a big Trai Hume fan, but I've got to be honest. I'm not sure I would have ever linked them with Real Madrid. So bit of a shock, that one.
Yeah, it wasn't on the bingo card, put it that way. But I'm tempted to say he's too good for them. So yeah, they can keep their hands off. They can keep their hands off. Hey, Trai Hume's a quality player. Clubs will be looking at him and they'll be seeing the fact that he sacrifices himself and he plays in any position the manager asks. And there will be some top clubs, I think, at least giving them the once over. Whether that equates to him going to the most successful team in Europe or not, I don't know. And I certainly wouldn't be pushing him out the door unless the money is extremely good. I think Trai Hume, he would have been in with a shout for player of the season. Certainly in terms of the most unsung player. We'll know in due course, like you say, who ends up getting the nod from the club awards this evening. But he's been brilliant this season, and I think if we have him next year as well, it'll be a really important part of the group. But listen, it's only just coming towards the end of the season. There's all sorts to happen, and mark my words, Gav, mate, this won't be the craziest Sunderland story over the next couple of months. Something will come along to trump even this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I think the reason that his name's been mentioned is because Real Madrid are losing Danny Carvajal, who's a massive, long-tenured player with the club, and they're looking for basically somebody to be back up to Trent Alexander-Arnold. And the other names linked in the story were Josh Achiem-Pong, I think you say it. He plays for Chelsea. Giavario Reed of Feyenoord and Brighton's Matt Weifer and Vanderson of Monaco. So there we go. There's an eclectic mix of footballers. But Trai Hume was one of the names lumped in with that lot. Look, I don't think anybody thinks Real Madrid are going to come along and sign Trai Hume. But it's a sign of, it's a sign of his progress that he's even being mentioned in them stories. This is a lad who signed for us when we were in League One for relative pennies, really, and has really lit it up and been one of our most reliable players for a couple of years now. So, hey, like I say, we shouldn't be completely shocked when our players are being linked with big moves and stuff. But yeah, I think I would be a little bit surprised if Trai Hume somehow ended up landing in Madrid over the summer. But I think if you were going to sign a backup right back and a decent value one, there's not too many better options than Trai Hume. Imagine him, some of the tackles he puts in on some of them Spanish players. That I'm just thinking of that one that he did on Brereton Diaz. Imagine sticking that in on so it's an immediate red card. But yeah, no, I think it's like you say though. I think it's a one of them where we can probably sit here and go, it's probably not the last time that we'll hear of a really random mad move for one of our players, because they're all very good players at the end of the day. And we're not putting Trai Hume down by saying it's like a bit funny that he's being linked with Real Madrid. It's funny, isn't it? It was 2 minutes ago we were playing in League One and this lad was part of our team. Next up, it'll be Luke O'Nien going to Juventus or something, won't
it? Well, hasn't Luke O'Nien got a bit of beat? Who was it pre-season, an Italian club he had
Mourinho.
A bit of was it Mourinho?
When he was I think it was Mourinho was at Roma at the time, wasn't he? And obviously, pre-season games are played at a certain pace, but not in Luke O'Nien's world. So he decided to go ramming through somebody with a big tackle, and Jose didn't enjoy it. But Jose's going back to Real Madrid. Hey, Luke O'Nien to Real Madrid. There's a rumour. Let's get that one started.
well, why not? Maybe Trai Hume and Preston during that pre-season game. In all seriousness, though, Trai Hume, managers will look at him and think, this lad will tackle anything. Like you say, the one in the playoff final, which it's coming up to the anniversary, of course, this weekend. Players will respect that and look at, here's a lad who, managers will respect that and look at, here's a lad with international experience.
International captain. Playing in the Premier League, 24-year-old, so he's a good age. Reliable, he basically plays every game. So and I'm pretty sure, I couldn't say for this season because I haven't really paid attention to it, but when we were in the Championship, his stats were right up there, like, and he was being linked with moves around, because that's what ultimately these clubs abroad look at. They look at the statistics and the data. So his profile on paper is pretty bloody good. Like I say, so like maybe not a Real Madrid, but you can see, can't you? You can see like teams from Serie A, Germany, France, maybe looking at him and thinking we wouldn't mind a bit of that.
Oh, without doubt, that there would be no shock whatsoever if he went to a club in any of the major leagues in Europe. I do want to point out that, like I said earlier, this isn't us trying to shove him out the door. This is just this quite peculiar looking story that's made it a talking point. I'd be over the moon if Hume was with us for another couple of years yet. And as you say, his profile on paper is very good. His attitude is always spot on. If you've got, if you've got a squad who you think maybe they're not quite at it, or some of them have got like hearts the size of a pea, get somebody like Trai Hume in, because he'll lift the standards. He'll lead the way, and hopefully other players would follow. If he goes to Real Madrid, that would be a shock. We're not going to say otherwise, Gav. But yeah, why wouldn't teams look at some of our players and think, could they do a job for us?
It probably suits the team on the other side of Madrid a little bit more, doesn't he, when you think about them and their manager, Atletico Madrid, because they're known for being a physical, tough, tackling team, and it's where we got Ronaldo from, of course. So if it said Trai Hume's been linked to Atletico Madrid, I would have probably sat there and gone, actually, I can see that, yeah, because considering his age, his profile, as we've said, the value, that he would probably represent, because he's not going to cost an arm and a leg. He's going to cost, I mean, to me, 20 odd million quid is an obscene amount of money, but to a top level football team, that's probably what you pay for backup players. And I'm sure as well, a couple of years ago, and I might be wrong here, but Matt Doherty left Spurs to sign for Atletico Madrid. So, there are players who play a similar position have made that journey. Like, I'm not ruling it out. I'm certainly not trying to sell Trai Hume, by the way. I don't want him to go anywhere. I don't think you could replace a player like him for the money it would cost us to. So, like, I don't want Trai Hume to go anywhere, but I think there is probably a wider point. It is a bit funny hearing him linked with Real Madrid, but there is a wider point here that because of the age and the experience these players have built up, and the data that probably backs up how good they are, we're going to have a lot of this. I think you're going to probably hear about Dan Ballard being linked with moves away, Enzo Lefebvre linked with moves away, Wilson Isidore will be linked with big clubs because of the journey he's been on, the fact he scored goals in the Premier League. Mayenda will get linked with big moves because he's so young and got so much potential, and it goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Like, I genuinely think we're going to see a lot of this. You're going to hear a lot of stories, and they might not be real, real rumors. There might not be any truth to it, but you're going to get a lot of stories linking players who we might not really see as particularly fashionable players being linked with moves abroad to big clubs.
Well, that's exactly it. Everybody's kind of guarding themselves over a big bid coming in for Siddiqui or Roofs or whoever. But yeah, you're right. There's plenty of other players, and some of the names you've listed there, Gav, the players who have come up through the leagues with us and played for us in the Championship, they might be on relatively low wages compared to players who are more established. So you mentioned the possible fee for Hume is being reasonably low cost. His wages might be better value than some of the other options on some of these shortlists for players. So, yeah, it is something we're going to have to be aware of. I mean, this weekend we're going to be fighting for a top 10 finish in the Premier League. So that in itself tells you we've got quality players at the club. Not all of them are going to stay, and there might be a surprise in store for us. Maybe somebody who hasn't just been brought along this summer and who was like Diarra, for example. There's a lot of talk, wasn't there, about we're signing him with a view to training him on and selling him on down the line. But yeah, that has meant that one or two other names you almost just take for granted and assume they're going to be here forever. Well, they're making a name for themselves, so it is something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I guess on the other side of the coin, and moving on slightly, players who probably haven't impressed as much, I think it's safe to say, as Trai Hume. Simon Adingra, now he's a name who we've probably not mentioned very often recently, because he went off on loan to Monaco in January and has actually done pretty well. From every time I check in, it seems he's got an assist or he's been involved in something or he scored. I think when he first signed for them, he kind of hit the ground running and was involved in quite a lot of goals and played in the Champions League for them. So he's done all right out there. And L'Équipe are reporting that Monaco want to negotiate with Sunderland over the summer about a permanent deal, but a bit of negotiation perhaps needed on the fee because they'd agree a purchase option of around 17 million euros. But it's believed that they might want to try and barter us down a little bit on that fee. What do you think with that one? Because I think it's interesting with Adingra. The club were very quick to bin him, weren't they? And as soon as he went out the door, we then signed Angulo. And I know Angulo's been injured, but they're clearly happy with him because he started at Everton at the weekend. And I think they want to see more of him before they can, while they can, before we get to the summer. So you would imagine his replacement's already in the door, Adingra, and he was kind of ushered out very quickly. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong. He just never hit the ground running, did he? And then lost his place in the team. And then when he didn't get a call up for the Africa Cup of Nations by his country, which was a big shock because he got young player of the tournament in the previous AFCON. He stayed behind. Virtually all the other wingers were out on international duty. And he scored a good goal against Leeds, but that's pretty much all he did. He just didn't take his opportunity. And that was his chance to really impress the people at the club. And then next thing you know, he's out the door. So what do you reckon? I think it's probably time up for Adingra, really, isn't it? I don't foresee the club persisting with him. That seems to have been pretty ruthless there.
I'd be shocked if he was still around at the start of the next season. Just from a practical point of view, in terms of quotas, aren't you only allowed so many players from overseas nations in your squad next season?
I'm not sure.
think I could have mixed up a couple of stories there. Certainly, we had to do a bit of jiggery pokery in order just to get him out on loan. I think we had to bring Alexic back just to free up a loan spot to get rid of him, so that the club were happy to move him on, which is odd because the summer wasn't the first time we'd gone in for him, was it? We were really pushing for him in the Championship at one point. So somebody at the club must have really fancied him. And then when he's got here and we've had a closer look, you're right, we've made a fairly snap judgment on him. In terms of fees and maybe haggling us down, I suppose you can't begrudge a team trying it on. If they think they can save themselves a few quid, they'd be daft not to ask the question. I just think from Sunderland's point of view, he'll be on a decent length contract. He has now gone on loan and played really well. We're holding all the cards here. If we're not happy with the money being stumped up by Monaco, we'll find somebody else, I think, fairly soon who'd be willing to pay our asking price. So, yeah, the club will want to move him on. We do have his replacement in. We've probably earmarked that transfer fee for our own recruitment this summer. But we don't need to be, held over a barrel. If it doesn't happen with Monaco, I'm confident he'll be lining up for somebody else pretty soonish anyway.
Yeah, I think this is why we buy a certain profile of player, because if you go out and spend what we spent on Adingra on a 28 or 29-year-old, it's a lot more difficult, isn't it, to get rid of them? And you look, not every deal you make is going to work. We signed 14 players last summer. It would have been absolutely impossible for all of them to work out. As it happens, nearly all of them have worked out, which is crazy, really. I think there's only really, there's only really Adingra off the top of my head who hasn't really worked out. I'm trying to think now. Have I missed anybody there?
Masuaku.
Yeah, Masuaku.
And
But he was free, wasn't he? So that wasn't a big risk.
Yeah.
And Trai as well as, from a playing perspective, has played well, but he's just never been fit. But again, was a cheap gamble, wasn't it? So Adingra was the only real, big gamble, really. But again, even though it hasn't worked out, and it's not going to work out for him, he's a good enough profile, a good enough age. He's had a good loan spell, which is a big tick in the box for him. Whether it's with Monaco or somebody else, somebody's going to want to take him because they'll have watched him and gone, actually, he's all right, him. But we might have to take a little bit of a hit on the fee. But I'm sure, that'll be offset probably with one or two sales, if we're being honest. So you can get away with it a little bit. You can't afford too many mistakes, but one or two's not going to kill you, is it?
No, exactly. And as you've said, we protect ourselves as much as possible with the types of players we're signing. It's funny because you're talking about all the players we brought in over the summer. You would have assumed he would have been one of the ones most likely to settle in because of his Premier League experience. The ones we would have had question marks over were these lads who were new to the country, new to the Premier League. So yeah, it's a peculiar one, and perhaps we don't know the full story. Maybe he didn't like the region or hasn't settled in at the club. I don't know. But yeah, it's not it's not the end of the world, and it's nothing out of the ordinary.
And another story, Andrew, which I probably should have followed up the Trai Hume one with, because it would have made a little bit more sense, given, one, we're talking about a Spanish club, two, it's an unfashionable player who's being linked to it. But TalkSport are running the story saying that Dan Neil has been targeted by Valencia. Their manager now is Carlos Corberán, who used to be the West Brom manager, of course, so he's very familiar with the Championship and what Dan Neil's done. Dan Neil, obviously, good age profile, going to be available on a free transfer. Just very quickly on Dan Neil, I think, yeah, his Sunderland journey's over, but I think we said this on a news pod the other week when he was being linked with a couple of clubs. But he's going to have plenty of options, isn't he? I mean, if you've got the choice of, because the clubs that were linked when we last talked about them were Coventry and I think Ipswich again coming back in for him. Wolves, I think, were the other club. If you've got the choice of either a team who are going to be well placed in the Championship next season, or a promoted side, or the chance to go and play in La Liga, I mean, one, it's a nice problem to have, but what would you do if you were him? Would you be fancying the move abroad?
I think I might.
Yeah.
I think the Spanish style of football
Mhm.
he'd be very good at. He's very comfortable on the ball. I don't know much about Valencia's form recently, but they're certainly a big club with lots of attention on them. And do you know, also, Dan Neil's grown up a Sunderland fan. So not only has he played for Sunderland, he's supported the club all of his life. People move on in football, it's one of those things, but maybe for him, he'd rather go somewhere completely different, have a completely fresh start in a different country, rather than still being in England and still being reminded. And say he does go to a team in the Premier League who are struggling next year, is he going to want every Saturday to be going back into the changing rooms and saying that Sunderland have done well again, and be thinking, "Oh, I'm missing out there"? At least if you're in Valencia, you're just having a completely different lifestyle, a fresh start. And if he wants to go and test himself somewhere different, I think he's got every chance of succeeding. He's got the talent. And you're right, we did speak about it recently, and we were all saying, oh, well, if, for example, he goes to Coventry, we'll want him to do well, but not necessarily Coventry to do well. I think if he does go abroad and he does go to Valencia, there'll be one or two fans sticking on the Spanish football on a Sunday night and cheering him on and hoping he does well. So that link makes sense to me. I could see a move along those lines happening for the lad.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the way he plays football would suit probably a less physical league, because I think Dan Neil at his best was a lovely footballer, and that's not to say he's not a particularly physical player. I think he is, but he's not physical in the sense that Siddiqui is and Xhaka is and Lafay is. He's probably happier when he's got time on the ball and he can move it quickly and, pick it up from the goalkeeper and the centre halves. He's that type of number 6. So I could see it working out from over there. And Valencia aren't the force they used to be. I think of Valencia as one of the big boys over there. And I suppose in terms of stature, they still are, but they've not been competing at the top end for a while. So it's probably a move I could see happening. Hey, good luck to him if he does. Not many better places than the northeast to live than that part of the world, I'm sure. So yeah, we'll see what goes on with Daniel. We'll keep coming back to that one, I think, as things sort of progress over the summer. I think with him, he's probably got to get a move tied up pretty early, hasn't he? If you're a free agent, you don't want to be waiting till 2 or 3 weeks into pre-season to sign for somebody. I would imagine that he's already talking to clubs and he's already working things out. But yeah, be interested to see what happens with him. Moving on very slightly, and this is a bit of positive news for us. It looks like Simon Moore has extended his contract with the club. James Copley from the Sunderland Echo ran that story today to say that the club have triggered his extension. Now, people may be saying, well, why is that a positive? Because he doesn't play. He is the definition of a squad player. He's basically in there just to work with the other goalkeepers and be a sage for the younger players, I guess. And a nice lad around the dressing room. But people might be wondering, like, why is Simon Moore so important? But I don't know if you saw this, Andrew, and we might have actually talked about this on a pod or not, but recently Luke O'Nien did a bit of it was either an interview or a blog post or something where he credited Simon Moore as one of the most important players at the club. He said that he uses Simon Moore as a reminder to himself to be the best version of himself every day in training. I think he said he hangs a Simon Moore shirt in his locker at the Academy of Light as a visual reminder of what that signifies. And look, I'm not saying we should be in the business of employing cheerleaders. That's certainly not what he is. But with his experience, with the way he's obviously viewed within the club, I think it's just a sensible move to keep somebody like that around, as long as they're happy to play that role, which he clearly is. I think he's going to be aligned more closely with the academy and maybe move into more of a coaching or mentorship role, which to me just sounds like great positive news. I'm over the moon to hear that about Simon Moore. I was a little bit worried that the club might move him on, having heard just how important he is viewed within the club. I was a little bit worried, thinking, oh well, his time might be up now. But no, it looks like he's whatever he's been doing behind the scenes has been noted, and they're going to keep him around for at least another year, which I think is fantastic news, honestly.
I'm on the same page as you with that. Somebody who's already at the club and built up clearly a really strong relationship with the rest of the group. Why would you want to move him on? Those Luke O'Nien comments resurfaced again as a result of this news coming out. And what an amazing thing to say about Simon Moore. He was really full of praise for him, not just as a footballer and a figure on the training ground, but as a person and as a human. And we've always got to keep this in mind. It's a tough job being a professional footballer. It's dog eat dog. You've got tens of thousands of people screaming at you every weekend. You're gonna want a couple of lads around the group who you can, I don't know, just talk to, or who's just a shoulder to cry on, or knows when to give you a little word of encouragement. Simon Moore clearly fulfills that role. I remember when we signed him, there was a bit of a shift there, because before him, behind Patterson, we'd had young, relatively inexperienced keepers, and there was a bit of a feeling that Patterson wasn't being pushed hard enough to keep the standards high and remain Sunderland's number one. He was a little bit, sometimes it felt as if he wasn't being challenged enough. So when Moore came along, it was a thought of, oh no, this is a bloke who, if needs be, can come into the first team. And he did. He came in and he played well when Patterson was injured for a few weeks last season. He'd also, before signing for us, just completed, I can't remember which one, but he'd completed qualifications. I don't know if it was training badges or if he was studying at university or something. But it was quite apparent that this wasn't just a bloke who turned up to train and put the cones out, picked up his wages and nashed off again. He was a fella who was trying to better himself and, had a good brain on his shoulders. And ever since then, all we've ever heard about him is being a really important member of the group. And those are the marginal gains. If you're in the Premier League and you're awash with money, he's probably not going to be, relatively speaking, taking much out of the club in terms of wages. But even without stepping on the pitch much, he's obviously doing his bit. And we said on the question and answer pods this week, if we get into Europe, we are going to have a load more fixtures to get through. Maybe he ends up being on the bench for a lot of these European trips. You don't know. But hey, the bloke, he sounds like a cracking fella, and I'm more than happy to see him staying longer.
And my favourite memory of Simon Moore was seeing him getting absolutely mortal drunk after the playoff final win in one of the pubs just next to King's Cross the day after. That was good crack. Him and Patterson in the bar just starting all the chants off, and then I think he fell asleep eventually because he was that pissed. I don't think any of them had been to bed, to be fair, so I don't blame him for having a cheeky little nap during the session. But he's obviously, like I say, he's obviously well valued, isn't he, around the club? So it's great news. Anyways, we will, speaking of gnashing off, we'll gnash off for a quick break, Andrew, and then we'll come back, chat about a few more things. So we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back to Howie the podcast, and of course you join us for this week's news roundup. And I want to chat a little bit about this, Andrew. It's particularly relevant given what's coming up this week, but the club have received national recognition after winning 2 major honours at the prestigious Football Business Awards over the last week. That might have been some news that escaped people, but they were given the awards for Best Social Media Campaign and Best Club Marketing Campaign in the categories for Premier League and top-tier European clubs, following the success of the Till the End campaign, which, of course, defined our promotion last year and was obviously a massive part of why we got over the line. People just started to believe about this Till the End thing. And then it bled into the start of the season, didn't it? And particularly over that first half of the season, we were just winning games right at the death, like week after week. And you're thinking, people really do believe this Till the End thing. So whoever came up with that idea in the marketing department, I hope they got a massive pay rise and a raise and some better terms as a result, because they totally earned their money. And it's particularly poignant, isn't it? Because the club have decided to bring it back for the Chelsea game. We pick our moments. I think, I was thinking about this, thinking what they're going to do. Is there going to be some sort of new marketing strategy, new campaign? But Till the End just works for Sunderland, doesn't it? It's now become an unavoidable part of our identity.
Oh, hey, listen, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. It's been fantastic. I think I've even seen people getting tattoos of it and everything. It really has been something, an idea that people have picked up and ran with. Am I right in thinking it first got a run out in the League One days? I think the Chef Wade playoffs.
Yes.
And the East Stand had the cat's eyes display, and the cat's eyes have since featured on the back of the third kit for this season. So it's been incorporated and developed in so many different ways. It's just genius, and it seems to really work for Sunderland. I'm not surprised clubs and awards people are looking at it and recognizing how important it's been. I think around last season's playoffs, they did like a whole load of guerrilla marketing with it, and they posted like a load of flyers around the town, and again that.
Well, from what I hear, that's going to be the case again going into the weekend. There's going to be stuff dotting up all over the place. It works. They know what works.
Yeah, definitely. And if they're doing that this weekend, brilliant. It helps create this buzz and gets people up for the game. And this latest version, a couple of people have pointed out, if you zoom in on the cat size, there's a lovely little detail to it. So they're always updating it and refreshing it. Yeah. And long may it continue.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't worked that out for themselves yet, we'll leave that one dangling. If people haven't heard about it, just zoom in on the cat's eyes and see if you can work out what the little feature is that they've hidden in the eyes. It's canny, isn't it? No, I love Till the End. I think people really start to buy into it, don't they, when it comes up, and rightly so, because it worked every time the club have ran with it. We've succeeded on the pitch, and it like I say, it's become synonymous and with us. And when you consider what's at stake at the weekend, I think it's only right that you wheel these sort of things out to get people involved. I mean, we've been inundated with messages from people asking, "Is this going to be happening? Is that going to be happening?" And little teaser for anybody who might be listening to this early in the morning. Yes, there is. You will see something around midday today, I think 1 o'clock. there'll be an announcement from ourselves and a couple of the other fan groups about what's going to be going on before the game. Not to say that it's our big idea, but we've got the platform to get the message out there. So whatever you're thinking about getting up to ahead of the game or even inside the stadium, just know that we'll be putting some info out there about 1 o'clock today. So keep an eye out for that. But it goes hand in hand with what the club, of course, are promoting with Till the End. But Sunday is going to be a massive, massive occasion for us, Andrew. I think I've actually spoke to people in the last couple of days who've said it's arguably the biggest game in the club's recent history. And considering what's at stake, the chance to qualify for Europe for the first time via a league position. The club have never done that. Only time we've ever done it, qualify for Europe was winning the FA Cup in '73. So no other Sunderland team have qualified for Europe via the league position. When you talk about it like that, and you think of the magnitude of what's at stake, it would be stupid not to give this the big push, the big lick of paint that it needs. Give it the sparkle and the glamour that it deserves. Because I think there's living proof, isn't there, of Till the End working. This marketing campaign award that the club have won, it's because it struck with people and it worked and it was everywhere and people bought into it. And I'm just praying that it works for us again. It's our good luck charm once again at the weekend.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's praying for it. I think this is probably the only thing I've seen every single Sunderland fan agree on ever, and that's can't wait for the weekend. Can't wait for this Chelsea game. It has worked in the past, and I think we always talk about how Sunderland's support can be a massive advantage when everybody's behind the team and backing them, and it's like the extra man on the pitch. So it would be daft not to try and harness that, particularly against Chelsea, who we're not sure whether they're going to even turn up or not. We don't know. Are Chelsea going to want to do a job and impress their new manager? Or are we going to see the Chelsea who've stanked the place out for the last few weeks? Well, if they turn up and they're not quite fancying it, and then they're hit with a wall of noise and sound and everybody's going absolutely crazy and cheering the team and lifting Sunderland an extra 5%, Chelsea are going to have to really dig deep to counteract that. So yeah, let's give it a real go. The fans, the players, everybody. This is what football's meant to be about. It's meant to be about finishing high and qualifying for things and exciting and daring to dream. That was another club motto from a while ago. And Till the End has been part of that for the last few years. I mean, till the end, Sunderland till I die. That's a phrase through the documentary show that everybody recognises now and connects to the club with. And it's brilliant to see that Till the End is doing that as well. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, Gav, the club is sensible about when they use it. They don't just roll it out for a daft league cup game in the early rounds or something. They save it for these big moments. But Sunderland over the last few years have been having these big moments. It's great to see. The club we all feared would go absolutely nowhere in League One. And since then, everybody just all seems to have thought, right, that's it. Let's change this. Let's shift the mentality around the club. Until the End has just underlined that and summed it up perfectly.
You can hear us getting a little bit excited about the weekend, and I'm trying to hold back on that because we're gonna talk a little bit more about it before the weekend. Of course, we've got the preview pods coming up, but like I say, keep an eye out for that info dropping around 1 p.m. on Thursday, because there will be stuff going out from ourselves, Love Supreme, and This Is Wearside, about what will be going on match day. But obviously it's going to be a lot more special than just a regular game with what's at stake. Look, we might win and still not qualify for Europe, but we've got a chance, and let's make sure that we as fans get behind the team and do everything we can to make this, one, as brilliant for our players to thrive in that environment as we can, and two, just make it so uncomfortable for Chelsea that they don't want to play, and it takes them off their game. Like in every other occasion when we've asked people to come together in the last couple of years, it's worked for us. So let's just hope that people keep believing until the end, because there's every reason to do so. Also, in terms of participation, just want to give a shout out for Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. They will be doing a food drive in their regular spot by the Bob Stokoe statue. I think they'll have Davy their horse box there, which is very easy to spot. Let's put it that way. You'll not miss it. It'll be located near the Bob Stokoe statue from 12 p.m. until kick-off. If you want to drop off any essentials, they've got this listed on the club website, the kind of things that they'll need. The contributions are warmly welcomed, especially non-perishable items with a long shelf life, including tins, packets, and boxed goods. Most needed items include tinned curry and chili, tinned meatballs, tinned spaghetti bolognese, pot noodles, pastas and sauces, tinned fruit, tinned custard and rice pudding, tins of tuna, tinned vegetables, long life milk, sugar, tea, coffee, shampoo, shower gel, soap, deodorant, sleeping bags, blankets, hand warmers, and tents. So yeah, you can check out that full list if you do want to contribute on the club website. They've put a post out about it. But you all know how much we love Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen, how much we love Andrea, who runs the show there. They do some unbelievable work in the community with helping people, particularly homeless, people who are hard up, people who are struggling. And I think the last time we did this, which was about a month or two ago, they had the biggest collection to date that they've ever done at the stadium. They had a full van. So if you are going to head along to the stadium early and get involved in the festivities going on around the ground and stuff, make sure you take what you can along, maybe fill your pockets with a couple of tins or carry a bag and drop it off with them by the Stokoe statue, of which they'll be there from 12 p.m. It's very much appreciated, I know, by everybody there. Slightly less endearing and lovely news, Andrew, but one I think that is worth mentioning all the same, because I think this is his first job since he left us. No. Yes, it is. It's his first management job since he left Sunderland. But Michael Beale is back on the scene. He has taken up his first post as a manager since leaving Wearside in 2024. I'm really sorry if anybody just had a pang of PTSD there and sort of curled up on the floor and started screaming. But yes, Michael Beale is a name we haven't heard in a while. He's just got himself another job as the manager of Zulte Waregem, who I think play in the Belgian Jupiler League and haven't had a great season. So to try and turn things around, they followed our lead and have brought in Michael Beale. I mean, I don't mean the guy any ill will, Andrew. He's back in management. Hey, he might do a good job. I think Lee Johnson went over to Belgium, didn't he, as the manager of Lommel, and has done pretty well. So there's, maybe it's just a place that these ex-Sunderland managers can go and thrive.
Listen, we can, as we're sat here talking about the prospect of a big final day of the season in the Premier League, we can afford to be a bit more charitable now and just say, listen, let bygones be bygones. Since Mick Beale left Sunderland, we have just skyrocketed. We have just, the club is almost unrecognisable, when you compare to how we are now to what we were 2 years ago. So, yeah, there'll be some people just rolling their eyes even at the mention of the name. There's no point dressing it up. It was a horrific appointment. The club, give them their dues, realised it pretty sharpish and acted quickly to try and limit the damage. And like you say, other coaches from Britain have gone over there and done well for themselves. He'll be hurting from how it went wrong at Sunderland, and maybe he's learnt from some of the mistakes he made, and he'll be looking to do things differently. This could be the making of him. I don't know. You never know. We might end up having a pre-season for the next couple of seasons, and we can all shake his hand and wish him well. Who knows?
I met him once in person I think I mentioned it on the pods before. He was in my local one day. I didn't realise, but he bought a house, or he was living in a clubhouse or something in my area, so he just appeared in the pub the night before we played Borough away. I think we won. It was one of his only wins as well. Did we win? I think Ruston scored.
Was
Did
it
we win?
1-1? I think that
1-1.
was 1-1.
Yeah, maybe not then. But we got a decent result at Borough anyways for that season anyways. But yeah, it was the night before that game. He seemed all right. He was a nice enough bloke. He just wasn't the right man to be the Sunderland manager, was he? Doesn't make him a bad person. I've certainly mellowed on him since then, I've got to be honest. I'm not bitter. We've moved on quite significantly since Mick Beale. Yeah, good luck to the guy, I guess, you know. At least he's back in work. A lot of managers, when they've... Because it wasn't just Sunderland where his reputation took a hit. It was Rangers as well. So not many managers survive that, and they tend to struggle to find decent jobs. He's had to go abroad to get himself a job, but you never know. If he does well there, he could well land back in England at some point, having maybe recovered his reputation a little bit. You never know, do you?
Aye, yeah, it could be the making of him. I'm just laughing there. Who would have predicted on that day when he ignored Trai Hume? Do you remember when he subbed him off for Birmingham and he gave him the cold shoulder and wouldn't shake his hand? Who would have thought that we'd be talking in a couple of years' time about one of them potentially moving to Real Madrid and one of them getting a job on the continent?
Exactly. Well, exactly. Good luck to Mick Beale anyways. All the same, we hold no ill will towards him. Anyways, mate, I think that leaves us with very little else to chat about today. We've covered just about everything off. Hopefully, by the time we convene next, we'll know obviously who won the awards. So we'll chat a little bit about that, and we'll be looking more fervently ahead towards that Chelsea game, which I just cannot wait for. I feel like I'm having to hold back on how excited I actually am about this game. It's just, oh God, I cannot wait. And in the past, I would have dreaded a game like this, being a Sunderland fan. But this team, this manager has totally changed my way of thinking about big games. I relish them now. I can't wait. So let's hope that this week we help everyone ease their nerves and get a little bit more excited as we head towards the Chelsea game. We've got plenty coming this week. I did say before at the start there that tomorrow you will have part 2 of this week's Q&A. We decided to jump in the middle of it. So if you didn't have your questions answered on part 1, then you probably will have done in part 2. And of course, if you haven't heard part 1 yet, make sure you listen to that, because it was a really great episode, loads of really good topics covered. So catch up with that and all the rest of the stuff on the pod feeds this week. Over on rotereport.sbnation.com every single day this week, we will have fan-written articles, lots of excitement heading into that Chelsea game. People are already getting hyper for it, which doesn't help me when I'm reading it and editing the work. But yeah, lots on the website, so head over there. We are at Roker Report on all your social media channels, so make sure you're following us if you want to see what we've got to say on the socials, on your preferred social media pages. Just easy to say thank you very much, Andrew. Been a pleasure, mate, as always.
Yeah, mate, thanks very much. It was good fun, as always, like you say, good fun.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to the listeners. We'll be back with the Q&A part 2 tomorrow. We'll see you then.